Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Boiler Track Show, a show by Boiler Upload of the Rifles Network. Today, we have a very special guest, former Purdue running back Markell Jones. Markell, how are you?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate
Good.
you coming on.
And I
Um,
appreciate you considering me as a special guest. So I appreciate that.
of course. So what have you been up to since graduating from Purdue? Obviously, after your playing days.
Yeah. So when I immediately left Purdue, I went back home and became a flight instructor. So for about 8 months, I was flight instructing out of the Columbus Municipal Airport. And then I got an opportunity with a gentleman who owned a demolition company, and he had an airplane, and I went and flew his airplane for him to various jobs, and also taught him and the second in command at that company how to fly. And I was there with them in West Virginia, of all places, for about 10 months until I got my time in order to be a first officer at Piedmont Airlines, which is where I'm at today.
So you're flying all over the place now.
Yeah, to an extent. So Piedmont, I'm based out of Philadelphia. I was previously based in Charlotte, but right now I'm Philadelphia based. We do a lot of the East Coast stuff. We go down to Gainesville, Florida. That's about as far south as we go. And we go west out towards Iowa. We do Canada, a lot of New York, Montgomery, Alabama. So we kind of stay east of Iowa is about as far as we go.
And then I'm assuming you got all that started at Purdue.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So that was what I went to Purdue for, along with football, of course, but was in the flight program. Got all my ratings, but with having football and a very technical and time-consuming major like the flight program was, I wasn't able to get my CFI, my flight instructor license, while I was at Purdue. So that's why it was necessary to get it outside of Purdue.
And what was that like trying to balance going up in the air, flights, and then having practice? I mean, you guys work what, 7 days a week,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
game.
so primarily, sorry to cut you off, but yeah, so primarily we did like lifts in the mornings, and then we'd have class from 7 to about 12 or 1 o'clock. But occasionally, just because that's the way the flight schedule works, it was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 days a week, and sometimes I would do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday because it was every other day. Um, I would occasionally have to come late to practice, so I would take off generally around noon, and then I'd be able to get back to the ground at around 2:30 and then make my way over to the facility. But yeah, there'd be many practices where I was flying over and watching the guys sweat in the middle of the summer, which was like, I'm gonna take my time up here. So I'm seeing these guys work and stuff, and then I'd get down and I'd hustle over to practice, get taped up and join them.
That's awesome. Did you ever take any of the guys up with you?
No, never. Purdue was some universities like making my decisions, like Western Michigan. One of the things that they talked about was like, yeah, you can bring friends up, and da-da. Purdue never really wanted to allow that, just probably for the liability issue of having like, could you imagine me and like Jalen Robinson or Tim Cason or some of these guys, these big dudes in the back of the airplane, and they're jokesters, so they just didn't want that liability. So that wasn't something I was able to do. No.
Would you like to have?
Oh yeah, definitely. What I'd really like to do is get like the running backs, DJ and Tarion Richie and them. That would have been fun to get them up in the airplane, or even some of the coaches, because some of the coaches, especially Barclay, he was always uh, when I'd come back from practice, he'd always throw some subtle jabs at me about, oh, Mr. Pilot Man, or whatever. So yeah, I would like to get those guys up in the airplane, and I'm really looking forward to. I've had a couple of encounters, even flying. Like one time I was in Roanoke, Virginia, doing a flight for Piedmont, and a guy who was a coach who I recognized, he knew Coach Parker. So it's a small world, and I hope one day to see some of my former teammates and coaches in the back of the airplane. They got to see me as their captain or something. So that's what I'm looking forward to in life right now.
Could you imagine a bunch of people coming on the plane and you see someone like DJ or Tario or Richie come on, they look at you.
No, I couldn't imagine, man. It'd be very difficult for me to. I know I'm gonna keep it professional, of course, first and foremost. But in the back of my mind, I'm gonna be thinking about ways I can mess with them because I think they're a little bit fearful of flight, anyways. Some of the people that I just haven't been on the planes with these guys,
Mm.
going to away games and such. I know that some of them are a little bit nervous when it comes to flying, so it'd be fun to mesh with those guys safely.
Yeah, no doubt. What's it been like for you trying to get over that hump of leaving football and getting over to that next stage of your life?
I think it's just kind of about maturing in life and all that type of stuff, right? So it's you go from a very structured environment at Purdue where everything is planned out for you. Your school schedule is pretty much planned out for you from your academic advisors. When you practice, when you eat, when you work out, when you study, all that is like it's scheduled, it's blocked. So just kind of having the ability to take the things you learned and what worked for you during school and then transition those into real life as far as when do I need to make these meals? Do I need a meal prep before I go to work? Do I need to, these types of things that just kind of happen over time. So I don't think it's been a terribly crazy transition, but, it was definitely a grind when I first left Purdue and had to get the minimum hour requirements in order to be a first officer. It's 1,000. So long story short, when you go to a school like Purdue or Western Michigan or Embry-Riddle, one of these types of schools that are accredited, you only have to have 1,000 hours total time in order to get your ATP, your airline transport pilot license. Okay. Now, if you went to the airport tomorrow and you started flying, you would need 1,500 hours. That's just a lot of time and money that goes into getting that time. So you've got two ways to do it. You can flight instruct, or if you just got money, you can just go pay for an airplane, rent it, and go get your time. So that was the biggest grind for me leaving Purdue was getting the initial job to be able to build up time. And then from that point, it just, takes a little bit of time to get that experience built up.
That is kind of wild that you guys have everything like I don't know how I want to put like I don't want to say it's like the military, but like that sort of like scheduling and making sure you guys are in the same place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I mean it's funny too. Game days, especially, it's like, I mean, we've got like a not a transcript, but I can't think of the word. We have everything
Itinerary.
like an itinerary planned out, right?
Mm.
Down to the clap session. If it's a 5 minute, it's got 5 minutes put into it for the clap session, or it's got 30 minutes for this, 30, so I mean, it's regimented. So I mean, it's sort of military-esque, but in a fun, sort of laid back, chill type of way. But definitely it's necessary to get guys where they need to be, right place at the right time, these types of things. So it was fun. I enjoyed it having that structure because it was very routine in a way, and it was nice to know what was expected of you. So
Yeah, that was probably to your guys' benefit as well.
yeah.
Now when I want to transition to this year's team at Purdue, obviously these last few weeks for the team haven't been what they wanted. What have your thoughts been about these last few weeks and the struggles that they've kind of gone through?
I caught the tail end of that. You were talking about the struggles they've been going through the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, just what have your thoughts been watching the game? I don't know how much you're able to watch them.
I was at the last game. I was at the Iowa game in person, and I watched as much of the Wisconsin game as I could, just because at some point I just had to move on from that. I mean, it's been a struggle. Wisconsin, they seem to have always had our number, what, 12, 15 years straight. I don't know how many years it was that they beat us. So they always have our number. From my experience and my time playing against Wisconsin, they're a physical group, so the records don't really necessarily show who they are. They've gone through a coaching change. They've still got really good players, I feel like, and you know, people always have their opinions about what should be done as far as should we run the ball more, should we pass the ball more. I think Wisconsin was prepared for both avenues that we tried to exploit, and they played really good defense. And then I think that we took the bye week in order to get healthy. So I wasn't in person to know what was going on during the bye week, but I don't know. We kind of came out lackluster, and I even driving up that day, I didn't have a good feeling just because of the weather. It was obviously windy and it was a little damp, which it actually didn't rain as much as I thought it would. But the wind played a factor against anybody. Ohio State barely beats Northwestern at Northwestern with like 30-mile-an-hour gusts. So it was a really difficult environment, and it kind of played to Iowa's advantage, I would say.
I mean, they were still able to throw the ball well. I know they were shorter passes. They weren't throwing big bombs with Peaches back there.
Yeah.
But something Coach Brohm said in his press conference was when you're a precision passing team, not just an air raid, whatever, a precision passing team, the wind's going to impact that.
hmm Yeah, and I do agree with that, and that's exactly what aided in. His accuracy has always been like where he's above and beyond a lot of other quarterbacks. His accuracy, and he just had a rough one. He had a rough one. I don't think there was a lot of separation that was happening, though, for being honest. And I'm also not sure that he seemed to me that he got a little comfortable looking for Charlie, kind of like a blanket, you know what I mean? Something like a comforting place to throw the ball to. And he forced some throws to Charlie. I thought Payne should have gotten more targets and some of the other guys that can create space and get open. So I don't know, man. That was tough. It was tough to watch. I think you probably were there in person.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, it just didn't feel like they could do anything.
No, and I also thought, I think the first half we were throwing into the wind, correct? Maybe the first quarter we were throwing into the wind, and I was telling myself, I think once we switched the sides of the field, because it was obviously tough. Punting was tough. We had a couple that were not shanked, but that hung
Mhm.
up in the air, and then they drop right down, and you don't get a very good punt out of it. So field position was going to be important that game, and then getting the ball down the field when the wind was at your back. So some sailed on him. I think that's one of the picks that he had across the middle when he kind of sailed it a little too high because he was still strong with it and didn't really account for the wind that he had at his back at that point. So these are things that are correctable, I think. I definitely know that they've been looking at the film and breaking it down very critically to be like, yo, this is something that this is our P's and Q's. This is what we are. And we've got to be better. We got to clean it up. Coach Brohm is probably just as uh, harsh on himself and calling plays that are going to put Aiden in the best position to be successful and put our guys in places to make one-on-one matchups and win them.
Mhm. He did kind of take I don't want to say credit, take the blame for that goal line stand that Iowa had, I guess. Um, Not giving the ball to
Yeah.
Mockobee. I don't I don't know anyone who agrees with that decision. Obviously, Purdue didn't score, so they're gonna be haters and whoever
Yeah.
out there
I mean, you
complaining
think
about
about Seahawks, right? Don't hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch. You
it.
lose a Super Bowl over it because you're throwing a screen pass at the. So I thought that was weird, man. We were running the ball fairly well, I thought, and
Mhm.
especially that type of environment. You're down there on the goal line. You had a big play to get down there. Now you're maybe a yard, 2 yards out, and you didn't run the ball one time. That was disappointing to me, and especially because there's got to be a way. The Kansas City Chiefs, for their credit, they have come up with all kinds of tricky stuff down at the goal line. And Coach Brohm, I know because I've sat in these rooms, he watches all levels of football to see different trick plays. So his bag of tricks that he has, I'm kind of surprised that it hasn't expanded because we don't see a bunch of trick plays this year. Like our first couple of years, maybe he thought that he had to be sort of tricky, but we had like a lot of trick plays instituted in order to keep us competitive in games. And so I'm surprised that he hasn't had more trick stuff down there in the goal line and help us score in the red zone. But obviously disappointing not to score on any of those 4 attempts at the goal line.
Yeah, and something that I think should be said is it doesn't have to be a Philly special type play
Yeah.
in terms of a trick play or misdirection. I mean, you could give someone like Deion Burks, who's really fast, TJ Sheffield, a little sweep, and
Yeah.
they could probably get to the end zone.
Yeah. That's what we used to do with Rondell. Just
Mhm.
give them a jet sweep motion. And Iowa's slow. They're slow footed. I mean, that's what they are. They're big bodied in the middle. They're physical at the point of attack, but they don't really have the speed like that. Yeah, I mean, anything. Even they would do that with Jackson Anthrop. And Jackson's not
Mhm.
fast by any means. He would tell you that. And they would jet sweep him. So I don't understand why that wasn't even a thought process there.
I do think that was just a bad look for him, honestly. When you lose a game 24-3, there's a lot more that's going to go wrong as opposed to
Yeah.
just one possession
Oh
uh,
yeah. hmm
in the red zone. So
Yeah, and I just wonder. I don't think that Purdue's ever been in a position, at least not since I've been there. to overlook a team, but it kind of felt to me like they were overlooking Iowa as like, that we know what they are. We
Mhm.
know that they couldn't score the ball. They probably that 24 points is the most they scored all year. I'm sure. Is that
In
true? Is that close to?
in a
Maybe they're
big
non-conference in a Big Ten game.
in a Big Ten game, I think it's close
Okay,
to it.
so for them to come in and throw the ball and do all these different things against us, I think we must have been doing a little bit of overlooking, or we're not as healthy as we should be or could be right now. So I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, on the back end, especially dealing with some injuries. I know OC
Yeah.
Brothers was just getting back at linebacker. But yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, they had scored 33 against Northwestern the
Okay.
week before. So who knows? Maybe they're finding their footing offensively, and Purdue is
Yeah.
just not expecting it.
Yeah, that's possible.
Now, for you as a former running back, obviously, what do you see out of Devin Mockobee? He's been a pleasant surprise, like Coach Barclay said on Tuesday at his media availability.
Well, I actually was able to go to one of their early preseason scrimmages. I think it was one of the last scrimmages they did in the summertime. I drove up from.
Mm.
I'm living in Bloomington right now, so I drove up from Bloomington to be at practice. I know, and I didn't know who the kid was. I only knew about King, and I knew that there was the transfer from Central Michigan. I'd watched some of his stuff over the summertime as he was coming in. I knew he was coming off that ACL, and then I see this young skinny kid, and it's Devin Mockobee, and I'm asking DJ and I'm asking Coach Barclay about this kid, and I can't remember verbatim what they were saying, but they're like, "Yeah, this kid's going to be the truth, whether he does it for us this year or not." Like, so they knew that they had seen something from him in practice, whether it be his work ethic and they knew that he was going to be able to tote the rock. And then one of the plays during the scrimmage, it was good vision. He started off on the right side of the field, ended up all the way back across on the left side of the field. And I believe he scored probably from 60, 70 yards out. A really nice run. And that from that point on, I was like, okay, yeah, the kid's got something about him. The kid's got something about him. And he plays physically much larger than he is
Hmm.
because he's not a big kid, but he plays really hard. He's hard nosed. He's got good vision and he's got good footwork. Even though it kind of looks a little crazy sometimes. I think that's why he's got the moniker of Crazy Legs because
Hmm.
sometimes he's got like this high drive, leg drive thing that he does, but good vision. And that's really what makes a running back is your vision. It makes up for a lot of stuff, and the kid's got some quickness too.
Now, what do you think? You might have to be humble here. Where do you think he stacks up amongst the running backs that Coach Brohm has had at his disposal?
Well, so he was a scholarship guy. Went to was it Army or Navy? One of the two.
Yeah, yeah, one of the two.
So
I can't
he
remember
was a
off the top of
scholarship guy. So he's not your average walk on, I would say. And I only say that to say there are some guys that didn't really have any Division I opportunities, and they walk on and they turn out to be good players. Xander Horvath's a good example of a guy who grinded, but he came in physically just like not looking like your average walk on. You know what I mean? So he was a kid that I think he had some offers from some places, but maybe in Indiana State or something like that. Either way, um, as far as how he stacks up, I mean, I would have to just based on coming out of high school in Brohm's era, I gotta say I was the best running back that was on the team. You know what I mean? I would put if I'm ranking it, I would have to put myself up there as one or two, and I would say one. I put DJ in there, and then a guy who a lot of people didn't really have the opportunity to see because of some injuries was Richie Worship, and he was a dog. Like for as big as he was and how athletic he was, it was kind of scary. If he'd have stayed healthy all 4 years, he'd have been a problem for me and DJ. But Mockabee is definitely up there. Um, Now, as far what's the question? Is it as far as potential? Is it as far as ceiling? What's the parameter here? You know what I mean? Because I mean, physically, the most physically gifted running back that I played with was probably Xander. I mean, big, fast, strong, and hard nosed. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it would have to be potential with with Devin, I mean, he's only been playing what 8, 9 games at this
Yeah.
point in his career, so it would probably have to be potential. I think 2, 3 years from now, he could be one of those guys you look at up there with a Corey Sheath to Mike Allstott in terms of what he's brought to Purdue.
Yeah, I mean, I would, I'll preface it by saying I'm from Missouri, right? I was born in Missouri, and it's the show me state. And so I got to see it to believe
Yeah.
it. Now, the kid's been the truth so far. But the thing about college ball is it's about longevity and sustainability. And that's where I kind of ran into some issues at times. DJ had some issues with that. Richie had some issues with that, as we know. So I hope the kid, if he stays healthy, then the sky's the limit for him as far as talent is goes, and that's very obvious by looking at the film. And so you just have to pray for him to stay healthy all 4 years, or as long as he's going to be at Purdue. And if he does that, then absolutely, he's got a potential to be up there. But just hope he stays healthy, especially with his physical running style. And that's where I kind of put myself in the hurt locker at times because I was a very physical guy and I wasn't the largest. I was strong. I definitely was more stocky than Devin is right now. Um, but it's physical. It's really really tough in the Big Ten. So sometimes you get a knee, you get a shoulder. I had an AC joint, and my shoulder is still not right from that time. So it's about sustainability. If he stays healthy, kid's gonna be kid's gonna be breaking records for sure.
And I mean, I don't know anybody who hasn't had a legit injury in college, especially at running back. I mean, you look at someone like Jonathan Taylor didn't miss a single practice when he was at Wisconsin, and I mean, that's probably unheard of.
Yeah.
But then you look, I mean, I know Dylan Downing. I don't know if you mentioned him as someone who stuck out to you, but it was kind of like Mockobee would get a series, and then Dylan Downing and Kobe would get a series.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's because Mockobee was dealing with an injury. I know he was a little banged up. I don't know. They haven't said to the extent, but they were kind of doing that to kind of save his legs last week, at least.
Yeah, there's only a few guys, and Jonathan Taylor, Melvin Gordon was one of the guys. Some of the Alabama running backs. Alabama's got 5, 6 running backs deep that are all NFL type guys. So
Yeah.
the thing about running back in college, it's not like the NFL where you've got like a first down guy. You may have a third down back. You may have a guy who's got better hands. But especially at Purdue, as of recently, it's been it's a stable is what we called it. So you have a stable of backs, and you rotate these guys not because one's hurt or just because you want to see different productivity. So whatever what it was for me and DJ, like my freshman and sophomore year, I would get like 2 series. This whenever after I had my really outstanding freshman year, I would go 2 series, and then he'd spare me for a series, and then 2 series, 1 series, and then whoever's the hot hand, it kind of goes from there. So I don't know what Coach Barclay's rotation is and how comfortable he feels with Devin's blocking. I think he does really well in blocking though. So sometimes if it was an important third down and he needed a bigger body to block, Xander may go in or
Mhm.
Richie Worship might go in. So it kind of depends on the situation. Or if it's a screen pass and he wants DJ in there on a screen pass, he may put DJ in for a couple of plays, knowing a screen pass is coming up. You understand what I'm saying? So situationally, I'm not sure again what the rotation is in Barclay's head, but I do see based on productivity, Maccabee's probably number one in the room right now. I don't know where King falls because he's been hurt, but
Yeah.
he's probably falling down the leaderboard right now. And then I think Kobe probably ends up around 3, which puts the other kid at 2.
Dylan
Oh,
Downing.
Dylan Down, yeah, at 2. In my opinion, that's kind of how I've seen it go as far as playtime.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
Yeah.
And then going back to you and DJ, I mean that was a great 1-2 punch that Coach Brohm had at his disposal.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously he's pass first offense, but I think you guys combined for 1,300 yards together one year. I mean, speak to how effective that run game was for how much it was used.
Um, well, it's funny. I was it was maybe during the that summer, this past summer when I went up to practice and
Mm.
Mockobee was having a good day. I was talking with Coach Brohm, and I think he made some point to me like suiting up or whatever, right? And then, or maybe I even was joking with him and mentioned it in some sort of aspect. And he was just saying that if we played IU every week, we would need you. You know what I mean? Because the types of performances I had against those guys. So me and DJ though, it was thunder and lightning, man. It really was because the thing about both of us, we're very similar, but we do some. I do things better than DJ. DJ does things better than me. But as far as our running style, we're very similar. We're both average to above average speed, quickness, great vision, and powerful. And now he's a little smaller. He's quicker. I think, and I told him, I think I was faster than him. Point to point, I think I was faster than him. And I had better vision than him. I know that for a fact. If nothing else, I had better vision than him. But he was quicker. So he could get to things that I couldn't necessarily get to. You know, I may be able to see him, but he might get there before I get there. So we were a good group back whenever we were running because we had a competitive spirit in the room. Like Coach Barclay's got a board in his room that's got like plus and minuses, like kind of like the stock market. You're trending up, you're trending down, or you're staying the same. And so it's always a competition in practice, in the locker room, in the weight room. It's competition galore. And we all felt at that time like we had 4 to 5 guys that could play and really contribute with me, Tario, DJ, Richie, and Langford when he was in there because he was like our faster guy. So I think that the competition is what made me and DJ stand apart, and that's why Coach Brohm trusted us. He felt like if there was 1 or 2 yards to get, we were going to get it done because of the way we practiced and prepared.
Mm. And just wrapping things up here, how do you see this team attacking? I mean, they got a huge game against Illinois this week, and then a team that you can't overlook, obviously, in Northwestern, and then the bucket game at the end of the year. How do you see them attacking this final stretch of the season and in the most pivotal part of the year?
Well, knowing Brohm, I think that this week, especially, is kind of like our Super Bowl. Um, so he's going to have the trick plays that he's been working on all year that maybe we haven't seen yet. So he will throw all cards in to win this game against Illinois because it's that important. Because obviously we know if we don't beat Illinois, then we don't go to the Big Ten championship game. And, you know, then we've got 2 games left and we're feeling pretty average at that point. I think it would bring us to 500 if I'm not. Are we 5-4 right now? 5-3?
5-4 right now.
5-4 right now. So we go 500, you know what I mean? And it makes us, me as a fan now, as not as a player at this point, as a fan, I'm feeling like we're this close, you know. Penn State was this close, Syracuse was this close. So I feel like the pressure is not going to be too big for us. The one thing about Purdue, we get up to play in big games, and this is a really big game coming up this week. So I think they're going to be more than prepared. Hopefully everybody's healthy. They're going to be locked in. I predict a dub, and I think he's going to throw everything at Illinois that is required to get the win. So I don't think we come out of there with the loss. And then as far as Northwestern, again, I hope that's not a game that we overlook because Northwestern has been not playing well this year. But they stuck in there with Ohio State, even under the circumstances of the weather and the extremely tall grass they keep up there in Northwestern. So I think that we lock in and we say we've got a 3-game season. We're 0-0 right now. Let's go win this first one and then lock in and prepare and finish out this season on the right way.
Now, what do you think it is about Coach Brohm where I mean, I guess Purdue in general, they had the moniker the Spoilermakers, but under Coach Brohm, they've had several big wins over, I mean, Iowa and Michigan State last year, Ohio State, obviously when you were there. What do you think it is about Coach Brohm that he can get you guys up for the big games that maybe the odds makers or the media isn't expecting Purdue to win?
I think he just turns it into a different gear. Or maybe it's the players. I don't know if it's our mindset, like we're the underdog. I think we love being behind for some reason. We love being an underdog for whatever reason, and we play up to that. And sometimes we play down to competition. We again overlook them for whatever reason, and we don't have the right to overlook anybody. until you're like a freaking Georgia of this world and you're playing like Middle Tennessee State. You can overlook that team and still beat them by
Mhm.
30 points. We don't have that. We don't have that at Purdue yet. So we just have to show respect to every team we play. And but as far as Brohm, again, we institute these. I mean, he's been literally working on trick plays every day in practice since the summertime. Maybe the last period of practice, he's gonna throw a new wrinkle in. We're gonna practice just so that it's not the first time we see it when we need it, right? So these are the types of games where he brings out those plays. Um, he kind of takes a critical look at what defense we're expecting and what coverages and route combinations that he likes best. So I don't know. I don't know what it is about Purdue that we play subpar against subpar competition and then play extremely great against a great team. So I hope that we just try to keep it even keel, never too high, never too low, and just play to the end is all I want to see them do. Because it didn't seem like, I mean, last week, I didn't see a lot of fight. It didn't feel the same. I don't know if they were lethargic, being a noon game, weather's bad, coming off a bye week, but we can't come out like that. We have to come out the gate, and I think first drive touchdown, make everybody feel better, and then just keep it even keeled throughout the game.
Mhm. What I've heard from practice and some of the guys that have talked to the media is they have had that extra chip on their shoulder this week. Came out a little flat last week, like you mentioned, and that was kind of the mood in practice. But this week it looks like the guys are hungrier, and they felt like they got embarrassed these last few weeks against Wisconsin and Iowa. So
Yeah.
we'll see how things plan out. But like I said,
Sometimes that's what's required when you. I mean, let's just be honest. We got smacked in the face by Iowa at home when it was expecting a sellout crowd. It wasn't a sellout at that point, or no, but not everybody showed up. So it is embarrassing. It is embarrassing. So I hope they use that fuel and use it as momentum to come in here and take care of business against Illinois.
mhm. But like I said, I'm gonna have to wrap this thing up. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Nothing but the best for you and safe travels and all your flights.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
All right, bro.